What you know, Alibis. Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. It's Wednesday, April 23rd, 1:45 in the morning. I'm so late getting this out because we had verdict in the Lori Daybell trial. And then I had to watch all the testimony after openings. Let's jump right in because it is lengthy. The first witness was Timothy Nuttall, who is a paramedic. The Commonwealth goes through his training, and then we talk about January 22nd, 2022. He went to work early due to the blizzard. He was actually scheduled to be there at 8 a.m., but he got there right before 6. And at 6:04, the EMS tones went off. They heard the dispatch for an unresponsive male in a snowbank. On the truck with him was firefighter paramedic Anthony Flamati and firefighter EMT Matt Kelly. Once at the scene, they get off the truck, and he said visibility was bad. It was still dark out, and he heard screaming in the distance. So he made his way towards the sound and rounded the truck. He sees 3 women standing with Canton police officers, so he walked towards them. He saw a human figure lying on his back in the snow about 6 to 8 feet from where the sidewalk meets the front lawn. He walked over to John and checked for signs of life. He felt no pulse. There was no breathing. John's skin was very cold to the touch. His initial assessment was there were no signs of life. The other 2 that were on the ambulance came and checked again. He went over to the 3 women that were standing there and told them he had found no signs of life. But at that time, Anthony called him back saying he thought this was a workable cardiac arrest. The witness explains you're not dead until you're warm and dead, meaning your core body temperature has to be within normal limits for it to be a practical attempt. This was a cardiac arrest in a hypothermic setting. And as providers, they have a duty to initiate life-saving measures and continue until they get to a hospital where a physician will then monitor the core body temperature for a certain amount of time. He said John's fingers were cold, stiff, and white and did not seem to have blood flow. When he checked his pulse, he noticed his neck was also cold. When he was called back, he knelt by John and took over the airway and started ventilation with a mask, which forces oxygen into the respiratory tract, and firefighter EMT Kelly started CPR. While kneeling, he looked up and saw Karen with blood on her face and asked, "How do you know this person?" According to the witness, Karen said, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him." He remembers her words very distinctly. He didn't get a chance to ask more questions, and he said she walked away. They lifted John from the ground and put him on a plastic stretcher to get him up on the regular stretcher and then into the ambulance. Once inside the truck, the witness maintained his airway. They put a plastic hook in his mouth, which keeps the tongue from obstructing the airway, and then they used suction and intubated him. They turned the heat on as high as it would go, and his teammates stripped John's wet clothes off and also were putting in IVs. The witness maintained the airway the whole time. He noticed John had a big bump above his right eye, as well as several scratches on his right arm, and they were deep. He also noticed a little bit of matted blood in his hair, but he didn't see too much, and John was put into a cervical collar. They took him to Good Samaritan and handed off care. When Karen said she hit him, it didn't have any significance to the witness, and the statement didn't reconcile with any of the injuries John was suffering from. They show a dash cam video from the scene at 6:11 a.m. They note the weather conditions, the location of the flagpole, and the witness is asked if he sees any movement by that flagpole. And you see several people. He points himself out when he first approaches John. You can hear Karen screaming on the video, and he points out where he was when his partner told them they were going to work this cardiac arrest. He points out Karen and says this is when she comes up and says, "I hit him 3 times." They show a photo of the area he was working in, and the timestamp is 6:09 a.m. He points out the roads are plowed because you can see bare pavement, and the sun was coming up. They show a daytime photo of the house and the yard from a distance, and then they show a photo of John's arms with the wounds. He confirms all photos represented what it looked like that morning. Defense cross. This took most of the afternoon. The witness spoke to the prosecution 3 times before testifying at this trial, once within the last 3 weeks, once after that, and then last night. 3 weeks ago, he met with defense attorney Brennan and his staff, as well as state trooper Tully. The first meeting was an introduction and going over previous testimony. He testified under oath prior to today twice, once at the grand jury and then last year at Karen's trial. He did not look over the grand jury testimony in preparation for this trial, but he did look over testimony from last year's trial. And the defense attorney asked how many times "I hit him" came up in previous testimony. Your memory is clear. You testified a year ago that she said it 2 times. Does your memory get better or fade over time? The witness said it can fade. Defense, but now you say your memory is better now than when you testified a year ago. Then you meet 2 weeks ago with the Commonwealth with the same group, and they talked about his prior testimony. They also talked about, and she comes up and says, "I hit him 3 times." And the witness said they also showed the video that was just played in court. Defense, if you met 3 weeks ago and you said it was 3 times, then why discuss it a week later? The witness doesn't know. It's just how the conversation went. Defense, tell me what Mr. Brennan said. The witness said, "What did she say to you?" And I said, "She said I hit him 3 times. Defense, did he say that's not consistent with the number you previously testified to last year? Yes. He said, "I previously said twice." Defense, so now you remember last year when you testified, it's inconsistent with what you're testifying to today? The witness admits he said 2 times last year, and the defense has him admit his testimony between last year's trial and this one are inconsistent. Did you talk about any other inconsistencies? No. What did you talk about last night? The witness said mostly just making sure everything was as it had been, that she said it 3 times, and we were making sure the way it transpired. Defense, the way Mr. Brennan wanted it to be? The witness says no. They go back and forth several times about how many times the witness said he heard her say it. He maintains 3. The defense asks, at which meeting were you shown the video? And the witness said it was the second meeting, and it was just the clip we saw in court, not the whole video. We nailed down who's who and where I was on scene. Did you see the video before the grand jury or last year's testimony? No. You're able to remember years later where you were when you heard that? The witness says yes. The defense moves on to talk about when they removed John's clothing and ask if they are preserving that clothing for an evidentiary standpoint. The witness said no, not really. They're working on taking care of the patient. And the defense points out it could end up on the ground, the floor of the ambulance, the floor of the hospital, and it can pick up debris. Yes. In April of 2022, you testified to the grand jury. John was dressed appropriately for the weather, a heavy coat, and possibly 2 other layers of clothing. In April of last year, you called it a puffy, heavy coat that you removed. Your memory of that coat was as clear as other specifics you've testified to in this case, but he wasn't wearing a coat at all, right? No. Not a heavy coat? No. Not a puffy coat? No. But you said he was, and the witness said, yes, I did. Did Mr. Brennan bring that up in the meeting 3 weeks ago? The witness said he asked about what I meant when I said he was appropriately dressed. The defense says, so you did talk about something else. The witness said he did not remember that until just now. Your memory is fading after 3 weeks? The witness says, yes, sir. Defense, did Mr. Brennan tell you what Mr. O'Keefe was wearing? The witness said, you did last year. The defense says short sleeve shirt, a thin hoodie, no hat, missing a shoe. So that's not appropriately dressed for winter. The witness says no. The defense says you noticed certain injuries on his person, but once in the ambulance, you can better assess. You had a much better picture of what you were dealing with. He had trauma to the right side of his head, above his eyebrow, and the worst injury was to the back of his head, which you noted was matted with blood. The defense asks about the injury to the right side of John's head, and the witness said his eyes looked black, but primarily His right eye had a golf ball sized bump and he had scratches on his arm. The defense asks, "You believe those scratches ended where?" The witness said, "On his right side, where your bicep and your tricep meet." The defense says, "They were deep. You could tell skin and flesh had been removed. They were going in the same directions, and there were scratches below the elbow that were also going in the same direction. Last year, you described the scratches by curling up your nails and drew it across your biceps." The witness said he used that as a landmark and how he quantified that in his mind. The defense asked about the hematoma above the right eye, which is damage to the vessels that causes acute swelling and is a common cause being hit or punched. The witness said it could be from a lot of things. The defense says, like a fist. The witness said could be. Could it be blunt force trauma? There's an objection to sustained. He asked, what are the causes of lacerations? The witness said blunt force trauma, stabbings. The defense asked, what about a hematoma? The witness said blunt force trauma. The defense asks if the laceration and the hematoma were right next to each other. Yes. Is that consistent with a physical altercation? The witness can't say. The defense points out last year you did answer that. They go for a sidebar, end up in break for lunch, and when they come back, is the small laceration and hematoma something that could come from being punched in the face? The witness says he can't speak to how that injury occurred. Defense, is it consistent with being punched in the face? The witness said that can be sustained numerous ways, but yes, that way, as well as other ways. Defense, but consistent with being punched in the face? Yes. You did mention earlier today the EMTs who were with you. He goes over the ones at the scene that day. Matt Kelly, Anthony Flamati, and do you know the name Katie McLaughlin? And the witness says yes, she is a firefighter paramedic for Canton. Was she on the call? The witness says yes. And the defense says, but you didn't mention her this morning. The witness said she responded on the initial dispatch on engine 3. Defense, you were asked who responded with you by Mr. Brennan. How did she respond? The witness said she was with a different crew and engine, but she did respond at the same time as the witness in a fire apparatus. The defense asks, was she at the scene the whole time you described? And the witness said for the most part. Defense, did she drive a different truck to the hospital? The witness, she was the driver for the unit I was in. He's asked if she went inside the hospital as well and with you after you went back to the station. Yes. Did you speak to her about the incident? The witness said it was a debriefing, more about what they used, what they would need to restock, and things of that nature. The defense says, but obviously more. You're treating a police officer. The witness doesn't remember. Defense, you said your memory gets better with time. The witness says yes. Did you talk about your observations at the scene? No. Back to the time he says he heard Karen Reed say I hit him 3 times. When you heard it, describe where you were, what you were doing, and who was around. The witness was knelt by John. Firefighter Kelly and Flamati were there. And the defense asked, what was Flamati doing? The witness said he was starting CPR that was taken over by firefighter Kelly. Do you remember what Flamati was wearing? The witness says a reflective yellow jacket. The defense says he was kneeling to your left doing chest compressions. And that's when you say she walked over and made the statement and Flamati was there. The witness says yes. The defense says you asked Karen, do you know him? And she responded with the phrase you use. And the witness says, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Defense, 10 days after, that's not what you told Trooper Proctor. The witness says, I don't know what I said. The defense, but your memory gets better over time. The witness said they discussed the case, but I'm not sure what he put down in the report. Defense, what you said to Proctor on February 8th was you overheard her say I hit him one time to another female she was talking to. The witness doesn't remember that. Defense, did you tell him Miss Reed was praying over John? The witness does not remember that. You saw Miss Reed with blood on her face from trying CPR. The witness says yes. And he did tell Proctor that. Defense, but the praying over John, you don't remember? No, I don't remember saying that. And you don't remember overhearing her say, I hit him to another female? The witness says no. At this point, the defense gives him a transcript to look over. The witness says it does not refresh his recollection of saying anyone prayed over anyone. The defense says you admitted under oath your memory about that time is faulty. The witness says no. The defense says April 30th, 2024, in your testimony, you were asked if your memory was a little faulty and you said absolutely. Is it true? You said, is it fair? Your memory is a little faulty about that time frame and your answer was absolutely correct. The witness asked if this was from last year, and the defense said you testified about conversations with Trooper Proctor on February 8th of last year, and you said your memory today is a little faulty about your conversation with Trooper Proctor. The witness says yes. The defense, you're not saying you didn't say the statement was made to a woman, correct? There's an objection. The judge asks, are you saying that? And the witness says no. The defense, you're also saying you didn't say to Trooper Proctor, you didn't see her praying over him? The witness said, I have no recollection of saying that ever. They go back and forth over this for a while. And the witness said it's really just not something he would say. I didn't see it that day, and it never happened. The defense, you also included the phrase, I hit him, in the statement to Trooper Proctor. The witness said he remembers her saying, I hit him 3 times. The defense points out that does not appear in the report, does it? Objection sustained. They start playing that same video from direct exam. He has the witness point out who's who. The defense said, when you heard this statement, you said firefighter Flamati was giving compressions and you were knelt down giving airway. The witness said firefighter Kelly took over compressions at one point, and the defense said, not my question. You said she walked over and made the statement. You said firefighter Flamati was there giving compressions. He appears to be standing up in this video, and the witness says yes. The defense asks, what did you see firefighter Flamati do? The witness says kneel. So at this point, he's kneeling for the first time, and the witness says yes. They play and pause. You see Karen Reed walk off and then back into the frame. Flamati's doing CPR, and the defense says, my client is nowhere near you. No. And she wasn't near you in the clip before? No. They play more, they pause more. At this point, they're bringing in the stretcher. They play again. And the defense asks, where is my client now? The witness said, behind the other individual. The defense, not near you? No. Play, pause. Do you see where firefighter Flamati is during this entire clip? The witness says doing chest compressions. Play, pause. They play again, pause. Mr. O'Keefe is being transferred to the ambulance. The chest compressions are on here the whole time. And you're no longer knelt down. Firefighter Flamati is no longer knelt down? No. They play, they pause. Do you see Flamati continuing compressions? The witness says yes. The defense says he's doing them start to finish. The witness says yes. Defense, you're loading him in the ambulance. Where is my client? The witness says front and center. The defense asks about hypothermic conditions and asks, you're not a doctor? No. Commonwealth gets back up and says the video they showed, do you see there's no time like when I showed you? The witness said there's 2 different time frames on that video. The prosecution says that video you were shown was not when she told you. The witness says no. They play the video again. It shows the timestamp on the top, and then they play again. The timestamp is 6/11/05. Is that when you first arrived? Yes. They play again. He identifies when he first arrives and walks over to John at 6:11 and 21 seconds. They play again and stop at 6:11 and 32 seconds and ask the witness if he sees Flamati come over to where he is. Yes. Was this shown to you during cross-exam? No. They play again and stop at 6:12 and 4 seconds. Did you see the defendant in that screen moving from right to left towards you? Yes. They play and stop at 6:12 and 11 seconds. You see Karen Reed going in the area the witness was in. Is it that time she said she hit him and you remember? The witness says yes. When you say you don't remember, is it the interview with Proctor? And the witness says yes. I remember talking to him, but I don't remember the substance of what was discussed. You mentioned blood clotting on the back of John's head, scratches on his arm, and a hematoma on his head. Did it stand out that all injuries were on his right side? The witness says yes, there was nothing on his left side. The state asks about clothing and says, you thought he was wearing a winter jacket. Do you remember a towel wrapped around his head? And the witness remembers a white cloth on scene. Clothing wasn't important to the witness. He says he was just focused on the airway. He did not remove clothing and mentioned difficulty about getting the clothing off. Specifically, it was hard to get his fingers through clothing. It was hard to manipulate. The state goes over these meetings. What did I tell you about testimony? To tell the truth. Did the defendant say I hit him? The witness says yes, 3 times. Do you remember if you ever talked about other times she said it, but not to you? No. Do you remember if the defendant was still talking after she said that to you? The witness said in the background, but it wasn't my focus. The prosecution, did you hear her say it again? The witness believes she said it several times, but it stuck out when she said it to him. The state asks, do you know who else she said it to? No. He remembers hearing it several other times, but not directed to him, off in the background, and the defense is back up. So now you remember her saying, I hit him a bunch more times. The witness said several times in the background. So the defense goes back to the transcript from just earlier and testimony and reads, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, and that's it. The witness said, that's all she said to me. The defense, you didn't say you heard her say it again. The witness said it was in the background when I was providing patient care. He heard generalized commotion. The defense says it's different than hearing her say, I hit him to other people. So what you heard was a chaotic scene, but not specific words coming out of my client's mouth. The witness said, I heard I hit him, but that wasn't my focus. The defense asks, why didn't you say that? And the witness said it wasn't intentional. On a redirect, it was asked of me. The defense, there's this new statement you've never testified to before, which is this generalized commotion that includes, I hit him in the background. The witness says yes. The defense, and when shown the video, my client was nowhere near you. The witness said that was not the time frame in which it was said. The defense, that's the time frame Flamati was doing CPR. The witness said he was doing it before as well. Defense, you saw him stand up in a yellow jacket and then he knelt down and started CPR. You described the scene when she said it. He's doing CPR and I showed you that scene. The witness said, you showed me the clip prior to that. Defense, I showed you the very scene you described, where he gets down and starts CPR and never stops until the gurney is off camera. The witness says, yes, that's the clip you showed me. The defense says, that's the scene you described when my client supposedly said that. The witness says that clip you showed, that's not when it was said. It was prior to that when the 3 of us were together. The defense says, so Flamati had not started CPR. The witness said he had. It was continuous throughout. Defense, we saw him kneel down and start compressions, and at no point did my client even approach you in that clip. The witness says yes. The defense says, what? There's an objection. The defense asks the witness, do I need to show you the clip? Yes. And the judge is like, nope. The defense says that video was played through and through. From the time Flamati began CPR, he never stopped until the gurney is off camera. And you also said the time when my client walked over and said this to you was during the time Flamati was giving CPR. The witness says yes. The defense, at no time did my client walk over and have a conversation with you. The witness, but yes, she did. Was Flamati giving CPR in the video shown? The witness said firefighter Kelly and Flamati were switching off doing CPR. The defense says, but in the video, Flamati had not started CPR, and that's when my client walked into the camera. The judge is like, "Can we wrap this up?" And the defense says, "I don't know if I can." The video Mr. Brennan showed, you pointed and said that's when she said the statement. Flamati was not bent down giving CPR? No. Later, at some point, we see Flamati enter, kneel down, and begin CPR? Yes. You previously said when you heard it, it was when Flamati was giving CPR. The witness says yes. At no point did my client come near you. The witness said that's the segment you showed me. Defense, you said on redirect, Mr. O'Keefe had no injuries to the left side of his body, but he also had a black eye on the left side. The witness said he had what we call raccoon eyes, which is bruising on both eyes. Defense, did you remember saying he had a black eye on the left side? Yes. And he explains the swelling migrates on both sides. Defense, did he have a black left eye? Yes. Defense, would you consider that an injury? Yes. The defense, let me ask again. Did he have an injury to the left side of his face? Yes. You said it was a chaotic scene. Did you ever see the homeowner? The witness said, I have no idea who the homeowner is and never saw anyone come out of the house. The state's back up. He asked if you ever heard the defendant say, I hit him separate from when she approached you. Do you remember previously testifying under oath? You heard her say, I hit him in the background, separate from you? And the witness says yes. Defense, when asked on February 8th, 2022, 10 days after, to recite your memory of that day, did you ever say you heard in the background Karen Reed say, I hit him? The witness doesn't recall. He's asked, what about to the grand jury? I don't recall. That was it for him, and that dude was ready to get off that stand. They play a video clip before calling the next witness. It shows Karen Reed being interviewed for a docuseries and is dated June 15th, 2024. She's asked, how much do you remember? And she says she's relived it so much. She says, did I say, could I have hit him? Or was it told to me? I said I hit him. And I knew I never could have said that. So the closest I must have said was, did I hit him? I know I said I hit him, but I really didn't say it as many times as law enforcement claims I said it. Then they call Kerry Roberts to the stand. She went to high school with John. He played soccer. She played soccer, and they hung out. He was a year older than the witness, and at some point, she was in high school with each of his siblings. They got close when John's sister died, and then later, when his sister's husband died suddenly, he took in the children, and he moved into her neighborhood. She jumped in and helped. She had 2 teenage kids. He was comfortable with her, so they started doing in-home daycare pickup and drop-offs, preschool pickup and drop-offs, and up to the time of his death, they were friends. They hung out all the time. In fact, he was her kid's emergency contact at school. The friendship grew after he took custody of the kids. The witness says she has a son who's the same age as John's nephew, and so they went to daycare, preschool, and regular school together. John was a bachelor when he took the kids in, and he leaned on the witness and her husband to help with everything like ear infections, headaches. If one was going to the store, they would call the other to see if anybody needed anything. They would go to baseball tournaments. They would have drinks. John got close to her husband as well. But eventually, John moved across town, but she would still take his nephew home on certain days. She got very close with John's family over this time, especially his parents, who also helped a lot with the kids. She would come to ball games, and Karen would help with drop-off or pickups with the witness's son sometimes. They were friendly, but they didn't spend time alone hanging out. They would speak on the phone, coordinating pickup and drop-off for the boys. And we moved to that day. There was a blizzard, and her friend's daughter's birthday was that day, so they went out early, and she wanted to get home before the snow started. She talked to John that day. He texted her, checking in on her son, who was sick. Her husband went to McCarthy's with John that night. He left to go meet him when she got home, which she said was on the early side. She had been to John's house many times before this, and they show her photos of John's house. There's a front photo, one showing his driveway, and then a side shot, and she confirms all those photos are accurate. It also shows he has a Ring camera and a photo on top of the garage just below a window. Her husband got home around 10 or 10:30. She went to sleep and she was woken up by a phone call around 5 a.m. from Karen. Karen said, "Carrie, Carrie, Carrie, John's dead." And then she hangs up. Karen was screaming loud enough that it woke up the witness's husband, and she didn't know what Karen meant. Carrie did try to call her back at some point, but she wasn't sure when. In the meantime, her husband asks, "What's that about?" The witness says, "I don't know, something's going on." But Karen called her back and said, "I think something's happened to John. I think he got hit by a plow." Karen said that John's niece was home and he wouldn't leave her alone, and she wasn't supposed to stay there last night, so she thinks something happened. She also said, "We drank so much, I don't remember much from last night." Carrie asked where the niece was. Karen said at home, and Carrie told Karen to go be with her. She told Karen, "You're going to get a DUI, go home." Karen said she would drive to Carrie and then let Carrie drive. The witness told her husband, and they both tried to call John. Her husband said, "It's a blizzard. He's probably on somebody's couch." She went outside and waited for Karen in the car. And in the meantime, she called the non-emergency police number to see if there were any accidents. The officer said there had not been. They bring in that recorded call of when she called police. She also called hospitals to see if anybody was brought in from an accident. She said she wasn't super worried. She kind of thought the same way as her husband that John's on somebody's couch, but Karen was frantic. She couldn't find John. The second time Karen called, it wasn't as loud as the first, but also not a typical call for her. She waited in the driveway maybe 7 or 8 minutes and mentions the weather was bad. It was 5 a.m., dark, visibility was horrible, snow was coming down fast, and it had accumulated overnight. Karen didn't show up, but they did connect over the phone. Karen said she was at Jen McCabe's and she's going to drive my car. Carrie tells Karen to stay there and she'll come to them and then she would drive. She asked Karen if she had looked in John's house to see if maybe he was just passed out. The witness didn't know where Jen's house was and asked Karen to stay on the phone with her, and she mentions that both Karen and Jen were on the line through the car Bluetooth. The house was only about 4 minutes away, and Carrie got there and Karen said, "My taillight. There was a piece missing, not just a crack." The driver was applying the brakes so you could see it, but there was also a lot of snow in there. But Carrie didn't think anything of it. She said she wasn't parked long. Jen pulls out and Carrie follows her. When they arrive at John's, Jen pulled Karen's car in first. And at some point, Karen showed the taillight up close, and then they went inside to look for John. They show some photos of Karen's car in John's driveway as well as John's car. They also show a second photo, which was the back of Karen's car. They went in through the garage, and Jen ran upstairs to the niece's room. She said the basement was locked and knew he wasn't down there, so they went upstairs to check. The witness said she was worried at this point, and she looks, and Karen was in John's room just standing in there as everybody else is looking for John. At this point, the plan is to go to 34 Fairview at Karen's suggestion. But on the car ride to Meadows, Karen said she left him at Waterfalls, and Jen said, "You were at my sister's." The three got in the witness's car, and Jen was giving directions. She and Jen were looking on the road as they were driving. Karen was in the back seat, and she would switch between getting into the front seat between the two of them, and she was just frantic. Carrie asked, "Where are we going?" She was told Fairview, but she didn't know where that was. At some point, the subject of Bella's mom comes up. Karen says something like, "She never liked me." And the witness said Bella's mom lived near where Jen lived, and John had dated her. As she approaches the house, Karen starts screaming, "There he is, let me the F out," and she's kicking the door. The witness didn't see anything, but she was looking. She just saw snow. Visibility was bad. She looked over, but didn't see anything. She unlocked the car to let Karen out. She told Jen Karen's crazy, and then Karen ran over to the snow. The witness still didn't see anything. But when Karen said, "There he is," she ran right over to this mound of snow. Carrie said once you got right up to it, you can tell the mound was the length of a body. The judge asked for a sidebar and then released the jury for the day. So I'm very sorry this is late. Just one of those days where so many things was happening at once. And in the future, these will be out in a more timely fashion. But that's it for now. I'll be back at you later today with a recap of day 2. Hope you guys have a good rest of your evening, and we will see you soon.